This is part 2 of Rob's share.
I sometimes ring my sponsor to today, and he goes, Rob, I said, I've got a bit of fear about this and that work. I trained up all the staff, and I said, they're going to cut me. They're going to cut me. He goes, why? Has anyone said anything? I said, nah. He goes, your head ever lied to you before? And I think every day, and he's like, and it's trust. It's trust. I went through this process, and I've finished talking about the process, and I went through it, and a spiritual experience, and the obsession to drink was relief from me. And I got faith that this would work. That's why I sponsor people. That's why I feel honoured to come here and talk about this. I really do feel honoured. But trust is a different thing for me, to trust that it's going to look after me no matter what. Trust that no matter where I go in this world, it will have my back. Trust that you guys will understand, it's a big difference for me as faith and trust. It's something that I have to keep working at on a daily basis to not listen to that fear that it will tell me, this is going to go bad. This is not going to, you can't do that, man. You won't be able to, and to slowly continue to walk through it over a long period of time. And when I listed all my fears, and I had a look at my fears, you can see it in there. I can see it today. If I believe it, my fears will take away my job, material financial security. My fears will take away my relationship. She's having an affair. I'll start believing stuff that ain't real. It'll take away you guys. You shouldn't be doing this, Rob. You shouldn't be in AA. It's just you believe it. Always come back to it. I'm a daily sort of person because of the service side of things and the sponsorship. So I get that. I love the feeling I get from here. I love the feeling when I'm working with people. I love the feeling when I'm doing service for Alcoholics Anonymous. I get a chance to give back because I've been given a lot. And now I got to a conduct inventory. And, it's just sex conduct in the book. I'm not here to say what people should be doing or what they shouldn't be doing. I know how I am today. If I'm at work or I'm in a meeting, I'm around people, if I get filled with fear and I believe someone's judging me something, my behaviour, my conduct around people is different. I internalise stuff. I leave. I won't say enough from anyone. I said, I had good sponsorship early on where he knew he was the same. He was one of those people that just had to drink to shut his head off. And he was I just imagined him being in a bad way too. When he got in, he talked to me about this stuff, conduct inventories. And when I wrote it all out, he said, just list all your harms, Rob, as well. And we'll have a look at the whole lot. And he pointed me to this page 50 in the 12 and 12. And for those that, new or those that are learning or people that are looking at this, 17 of the 12 and 12 says that 12 and 12 was written to broaden and deepen the understanding of the steps as they're first written in our Big Book Literature program to add to, And that's what we sort of did a bit of early on. Then later on, I did a lot more with him after my mind cleared a bit and I started sponsoring people myself. And talks in there about our conduct for the rest of our life in areas of money, security, sex relation. So I listed all my conduct. I still, I revisited it 9 years sober. I had to look at it again and my sex conduct again and relationship I was in and my motives behind it. And, the trouble with me when I'm in any sort of emotional disturbance or I'm looking out, I'm not looking within, my conduct not right with my behaviour around other people because I sometimes I work with, I'm lucky enough I've had ladies ask me for help and I get a chance to take them through the book. Some people I sponsor, they've never done no harm to anyone. We get to the conduct and the harms list, they haven't done the stuff I did. I can't expect them to, already haven't done this. It's just not the way it is. I watch people drink themselves to death, mate, but, never done anything for anyone. I watch my uncle do that. I didn't see him do much. He's 42 years old. His nervous system broke down. He had peripheral neuritis. It's chronic alcoholism. So I think it's important for me to, and I got made really aware of that early on when I was going to meetings and You know, after I had an experience with this program, and we sat there and we talked about a lot of stuff, and we got to the fifth step, and you know, I would never have done a fifth step with him if he hadn't shared his worst items in stock with me. At steps 3, when he explained God-given instincts, he talked about all his stuff. He talked about his conduct in all areas of his life. He shared everything openly with me. I got big identification. I didn't get identification at a meeting about Alcoholics Anonymous. People were talking about drinking and blackout stories and this and that. And I'd get up to him, you know, I had a few stories, and we all can do it. But he shared the stuff that's embarrassing, the stuff that you don't want to share with anyone. And so I got to step 5, and I just opened up with him, and we went over everything. And more light shines through 2 windows than it does 1, I once was told. And he shone a light on my darkness. My soul was in a bad place. It was like soul surgery for me. And we sat down and we went through all my resentments, and each one, we looked at it where I was dependent on people. I do what I want in my own self-esteem, dependent on money from my mum. I was dependent upon all these things. I looked at what harm I was doing to my parents, my family members, friends. I looked at my wrongs, and it stood out. You know, 90% of mine, I'm embarrassed to say, they didn't do anything to me. I seen the truth in it, and I seen that, Jesus, I've got to tell people, a lot of people, I'm sorry. You know, and I owed a lot of money. I was totally reliant on these people for my life, and I was sick, and I didn't know any other way to live. And he assured me, he goes, Rob, you're a sick person. You're not a bad person. He kept going over that with me, you're sick, Rob. But people that in obsession take a drink are insane. They're drinking against their own will. He goes, this is a treatment that will stop this. And it's up to you what you do with it on a daily basis. And we got to the end of my 5th step, and I felt like a lot of stuff was just gone. And that had started happening in my 4th step, and I went home and I left, and I won't go over what happened then because I'll be jumping on Tony's stuff, and I'll share some fluid. I'll stick 10. I'm just joking, Darren. I'm not gonna. I'll start shooting from the hip in a minute, but no, trust. You know, for me, trust. I had to learn about. I had to learn a lot about resentment in my first 9 years of recovery. I'll give you the strong tip. You know, I left a meeting one time, and man, 20 people, I reckon, have resentments when I got home. I rang my sponsor. I was like, oh, I'm sharing about the book. They're all talking absolute rubbish. He goes, did you write it out, Rob? I said, no. Nah. Then I knew I was going, all right, give me a call that later. I think, bloody man. And I write them out. I kept writing them out. I started to learn stuff with this inventory process where I was dependent on people to carry this message from my own self-esteem and pride. And what about the newcomers? Now, my fear was, I was resentment. My fear was other people's welfare. They would relapse, and then I'd look at them. I think, hang on a minute here. Some of those people, they're just doing the best they can with what they know. Those people are nice people, like they're not into this. They don't have to be into it. What about Rob stand up? Rob find the voice in all this. And I'd love to say that was the way it ended, but it wasn't. It was 9 years of trying to get my head around just that, continuously going back and continuously trying to be patient, tolerant, loving towards people, and trying to see the truth in Rob's own stuff, not what other people were doing, what I needed to do. And, it was a journey, which is I'm very grateful for today. Alcoholics Anonymous allows people to hang around and say whether people are whether they're angry, they're frightened, whether they whatever's happened. Some people storm out of meetings. And I think that's the good place, safe place for people. Of course, you don't want to see that, but it happens every now and then. People get emotional. When I'm in resentment, my emotions are off the chart. When I'm in fears, my emotions are off the chart. You get me frightened enough, and I can react. That's just the way it is. And that's it. and I need to work on this, on a daily basis. So I'll share a story. Trust for me is important. It was 2011. 13 years sober. Me and my partner. At the time, we tried to have a child. We had lost a couple, up to 12 weeks, and there was no heartbeat. Had a couple of miscarriages, and we planned a trip to America. We thought, oh, maybe we're not going to have a child, And she's not a member, and she got pregnant, and it's we went over to. She had to be back for 20 weeks, I think, at the time. We still went to America. We come back, so thinking she's going to lose us for sure. That's what I thought. And we got back and we got to the time when it's right. And no one tells you about this stuff. Men's side, I didn't know what was going on with the pregnancy of the lady. I went along to a few of the things with my partner, like a few of the sessions you have and hold them. And, I wasn't listening, I was too worried about the car park. I just missed out on outside the hospitals. And they're telling me all these things, and we get to you guys relate to that, and we get to the time when she's just about to have the child, and she rings me, and I leave work, and I go home and pick her up. We head into the hospital, and it just was 10 hours later, and she wouldn't dilate, and people were starting to panic. I could sense it, and it scared me. I was terrified, of what was happening, and the cord was wrapping around her neck in the womb, and I thought, oh God, man, I'm always helping you out with your kids in AA. I was thinking that at the time. I'm thinking, this is it. This is what you get. But believing in God, And anyway, then all of a sudden I could hear a thunderstorm in the distance. These two surgeons come burst in the door, Nikes, with gowns on, and bang, we're out, we're moving, get a gown on him, and they've got a screen up in it. Bang, she's going to have a cesarean. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. No one tells you that at school. They certainly don't share that at IDB. And no one pulls you aside and said, prepare for this. This could happen to you, Rob. Did maybe you could, see what's going to go down. Look into this. You know what I mean? And I didn't know what was happening. All I knew was that I didn't know what was going on. And I stood at the end, and I'm at the end of the screen, and I'm with Yvette, and I'm looking over, and I'm thinking, what the hell is happening here? And it hear stuff, and full Yvette moving, and then they called up little Ruby out. Oh my God. I didn't know if she was alive or dead. I just wondered what was going on. And it's one of the most touching moments of my recovery, because they cut the cord and they put it down on a little tray, and the nurse goes, come over here, Bob. And Yvette's going to take photos, I'll take photos, and I put the cameras down, and she just put your little finger out. She put out my hand, and Ruby's little hand grabbed it, and her eyes opened. Mate, I burst into tears. It just poured out. The reason I mention this story with this, because, I heard it last night at a meeting, someone mentioned it, resentment and fear, and, it's a separation for us. How can you love anything or anyone when you're in it? And 14, it took me that long, and I felt this overwhelming feeling in the room I just felt it. I felt it when I went through this process. I had a spiritual experience, and I recognized that God loves us all the same way I was feeling that love for my daughter. He loves us all like that. I recognized that we're all the children of God after that, because the love I felt for the room filled up with that joy, and I just, man, oh man, I had to call her. Yvette goes, we'll call her Ruby, and I said, she goes, what do you want the second name to be, Rob? And I said, Grace. She's our little gift from God, and it's just people know me here, I just adore her. I just dote over her, and recently we sat down. She started high school, and she started at a school where her mum's family, beautiful people, and they've been involved in a church there. So I love them being around there, and she's going to like a Christian school where her mum used to work in the soup kitchen years ago before it became a school, and she'd feed the homeless and that there. And I helped her. She goes, Dad, I got to put a tie on when I go to school. I don't know how to do it. Again, well, that's what YouTube's for. I said to her, I said, I know the feeling. I get asked this, shared a few times in the past, and you know what? I wouldn't have had a clue. And so we sat down together and we went through it on YouTube, and she'd done her first little tire. I showed her how to loosen it off, take it off, so she took it home with her. And it's those sorts of things that, I haven't got trust enough to know that the outcome's going to be okay. I had never had that trust. I still suffer a bit of it, where I just don't think it's going to end up really good for me. Don't get me wrong, not everything ends up the way I want it. It never will. But the things where I'm doubting at that time, where I need to have that trust and just whatever happens, accept that it's God's plan in this world, that whatever happens, something good will come from it. Like it's meant to be at that time, because later on I'll know why. It's amazing experience, recovery, and like a workplace stuff to get opportunities we get. If I do this with you guys and I'm here and I sponsor people, do you know what? Someone asked me about this once. Is it some sort of miracle that happened? I see it all the time in heaps of members coming in destitute, down and out, and yet suddenly they're picked up and given a life out there beyond their wildest dreams. I see it. I see it all the time. And I said to someone, I don't know if it's any, with me, I don't know about other people, with me, it might be with them, with me, do you know what happens? While I'm here with you guys, while I'm sponsoring people, while I'm involved in our service structure, giving back, Rob doesn't interfere in everything. I get a clear mind, so I get that peace of mind, I get that treatment. I ain't trying to make things happen. If I'm not here with yous, or I'm doing my own thing, it's just chaotic. It doesn't work for some reason. I don't know why. It just never did. It never worked. Even when I travel around a bit, if I plan to go somewhere and there's a meeting there, I always see the things I really will need to see. Everything that I want isn't as good as, the things I'll get if I'm in that moment, that now, where I'm not thinking about, I'm not frightened of the future, I'm not going over the past, and I'm not reliving things that are just totally gone. There's nothing I can do about it. I may need to apologise. I may need to seek a difference in it, but I certainly, certainly need to be here with you guys. There's just a story. I don't show how much time I've got left. And it's the conduct, the reason I'm sharing this stuff, because sometimes we do our inventories. What do we get out of it? What's the payout at the end? What do we want out of it? I think what we want out of it is not to be that person that's filled with anger and resentment and fear and ashamed of everything. That's what it does. And I'll share a quick story and finish up. My grandmother, 6 months sober, she had a stroke, and one of my amends to my grandfather, I said to my original sponsor, how do I just make an amends to a dead person? And he passed away, and I felt I let him down. And he said to me, write him a letter, Rob. Write a letter. And we talked about 3 places you can do it. Go to the cemetery, make it. Go to a somewhere you spend a lot of time with him, or do it in your house. And I have to do it in my house. People hear me talking to myself, and I'm nuts anyway. I didn't want to go to the cemetery, little man. This God thing, now some sort of ghost or something will appear for me. I think I've got to chat. Just joke a bit. And so I went to a place where he taught me how to fish. He taught me how to fish when I was a kid. And it's blocked off now. There's a power station. It's an old wharf in Adelaide, in Port Adelaide, where I'm from. And I went down there and I wrote this letter, and I said the things that we learn in our process, in our conduct inventory. It says in there what we should have done instead. And that's what I was shown to do, right? What you should have done instead in all your amends, because that's going to be like a blueprint for your life. And where I feel like I let him down, I felt like I wasn't the grandson he wanted. I put in there, I'm sorry, I felt I should have been the grandson that you should have had. I should have been there for you, and I should have loved you. I was incapable of it. I was sick, chronic alcoholism. I didn't know it. And I went down and I read this letter and all these all these things, and nothing happened. There was no parting of the rivers or down there. There was none of that stuff, like something. And on the way down, they had those thoughts. Imagine something like that happen, but they didn't. Crazy stuff in that time when you, and I read that letter, but then I walked home, and shortly after that, my grandmother had a stroke. They left her paralysed, half her body, and she got put in a nursing home, and I started going there, and I started seeing her, and I got to know a few of the carers and nurses there, and they get a hoist up in the end, and I take her for walks. They wanted me to take her out, and they put her in this normal sort of wheelchair and put a blanket on her, and I'd walk her down Semaphore in Adelaide. If anyone knows Semaphore, it's a beautiful place. And she grew up down there, and I'd take her down. I'd walk her all the time, and any chance I could get, I'd go there. And I first really started reading the Bible was there. Read a bit of the Bible with her. And in the end, 4 years after that, she finally passed away. And I look back on that and I reflected. I realised that, the letter to my grandfather, he would have loved that. But it was the usual thing for me to say, you guys, no, sorry for this, sorry for that. Just uncut it. He would have loved that I spent time with my grandmother because he wasn't there to do it. He would have loved that. That's the amends. That was the change in my conduct, in my behaviour. That's it. The actions that we take that change the way we refeel. That's what this stuff does. And it has done it immensely for me. It hasn't made me internally perfect, but it's given me a place where there's a lot of that deep refeeling left me. I was gone in that. And anyone in here that's ever been in that knows that deep refeeling. To come out of that, then you're left with, our defects of character over a period of time, which no doubt Tony will explain brilliantly. And I wake up, I'll try not to go into it. As I said, like the things that make me restless, irritable, discontent, resentment, fear, guilt, shame, the stuff I need to deal with. So I feel very honoured to be amongst you people. And thank you so much to the committee for putting this on. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. I've enjoyed this very much. Thank you so much for being involved.